Good morning. Commissioner Beavers?
Here.
Commissioner Butler?
Here.
Commissioner Collins? Commissioner Daly? Commissioner Fritchie? Commissioner Gaynor? Commissioner Garcia? Commissioner Gorman? Commissioner Goslin? Commissioner Murphy? Commissioner Reyes? Commissioner Schneider? Commissioner Silvestri? Commissioner Sims? Commissioner Sims? Commissioner Steele? Commissioner Sufferdon? Commissioner Tobolsky? We'll have some others here soon. Silvestri, here. Commissioner Murphy's here. Okay.
We have a quorum.
We do. Yes, we do.
All right. The clerk informs me that a quorum is present. Would Commissioner Reyes please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please read the call of the meeting into the record?
Good morning, Madam President, members of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, Cook County elected officials, department heads, and financial officers. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Preckwinkle, President of the Board of Commissioners of Cook County, has directed me to call a special meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Cook County on Tuesday, October 25th, 2011, at the hour of 10 a.m. in the County Board Room, Room 569, County Building, 118 North Clark Street, Chicago, Illinois, for the presentation of the message of the President to the Board of Cook County Commissioners submitting the executive budget for fiscal year 2012.
We're done?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank all of you for coming here today. And a special word of thanks to all the county-wide elected officials. I see in particular the Treasurer Maria Pappas and the Clerk of the Court Dorothy Brown are with us today. Not to mention Clerk David Orr, Dr. Raju from the healthcare system. Did I miss any others of our countywide elected officials? This budget process was markedly different from last year's, in large part due to the willingness of other countywide elected officials to collaborate and engage throughout the process. Again, my thanks to them. And thank you to members of my administration who've been working tirelessly for the last several months, especially my Chief of Staff, Kurt Summers, and my Budget Director, Andrea Gibson. They've led the charge in the budget process. No easy task, and I'm grateful to them. I'm here today to present our fiscal year 2012 budget and to pledge to work with you, our commissioners, to bring fiscal responsibility to Cook County government. Governments at all levels are finding themselves having to do more with less, and Cook County is no exception. This budget reflects a commitment to weather the challenges we face through meaningful collaboration among all sectors and stakeholders. 8 months ago, I stood right here and asked you to help me take responsibility for giving county government a new direction. I said that it wouldn't be easy, and I've kept my word. There's been nothing easy about this. But we're taking big steps in the right direction. In the budget proposal presented to you today, we solved a $315 million gap. In less than a year in office, we've managed to save our taxpayers $800 million in government spending. While we had a smaller deficit last year, in many ways, this is the toughest budget that the county has had to face. Unlike last year, we could not rely on one-time fixes, such as sweeping our special purpose funds. In fact, in this year's budget, you will see under 1% of the overall budget is made up of one-time solutions. Instead, we've made strategic structural changes, including over 1,000 layoffs. This budget rests on a framework of long-term financial management and strategic structural changes across county government. This has allowed us to make long-term investments in the county, keeping our commitment to rolling back the 2008 sales tax increase and investing in a 3-year plan to build our suburban infrastructure. This budget supports important structural improvements in our public safety system that will help make our communities safer and reduces the health system subsidy without reducing patient care. But in order to do that, we first had to improve the county's budget process. When I took office last December, we were 5 days into the fiscal year and there was no budget in place. That's why, as soon as we passed the 2011 budget, after a very long evening for everyone, as I recall, we quickly began working on this year's budget. The first step in having a disciplined budget is a disciplined budget process. In June, I issued an executive order mandating a preliminary budget be released by the end of July. The executive order also requires the President's office to host a public hearing in order to gain input on budget priorities before submitting an executive budget recommendation. In July, we released that preliminary budget with an estimated $315 million deficit. And the President's office held the first ever public hearing on the preliminary budget. But we didn't stop there. Quite simply, Cook County residents deserve to know how their tax dollars are being spent, and they deserve to have a voice in the discussion as we weigh important decisions throughout the budget process. We made a commitment to a more transparent and accountable budget process. We launched an interactive budget website in order to show how our Cook County dollars are being spent, including a tool that allowed users to see how reducing expenditures or increasing revenues would affect the $315 million gap. It also allowed residents to give direct feedback to my administration through a Tell Tony feature. And something I can honestly say I never thought would happen, I held a Twitter town hall to further engage residents on the preliminary budget. I thank Commissioner Fritchie for being the host of our Twitter town hall. This year's process has allowed us not only to have a better sense of our financial landscape, but to ensure better engagement of county residents, labor union leaders, foundations, and civic organizations throughout that budget process. Last year, we discovered that county departments and agencies were not able to measure what services were being provided for each taxpayer dollar. For example, questions such as how much does it cost to send out a tax bill, or what is the impact of cutting funding to a department by a particular amount of money, simply could not be answered. On top of that, we found that departments were neither measuring performance nor setting targets for themselves. So with the pro bono assistance of the Civic Consulting Alliance and the Boston Consulting Group, we have started to implement performance management throughout the county. My staff and I are taking the lead in this process to ensure that the county is accountable for the tax dollars that fund our budget and the functions that we must provide for the public. With the help of our pro bono partners, we provided training, resources, and additional support to county agencies to drastically improve their performance management. We're holding all agencies, including ourselves, the President's office, accountable by requiring the preparation of a quarterly report to establish measurable goals and detail plans to meet those goals. On July 1st, we published our first county-wide performance management report. On October 5th, we released our second report, which added more than 30 new measurements and almost 100 new data points to the process. For the first time, the county will be able to hold management accountable for providing better services and using your tax dollars more efficiently. It will focus on the services the county provides in 5 key areas: healthcare, public safety, economic development, property services, and fiscal administration. And going forward, We will use this report to make important operational decisions based on the data collected. Our performance management efforts are probably the best example of the substantial work we've been able to accomplish with the assistance of the Civic Consulting Alliance, to whom I'm deeply grateful, and the diverse network of pro bono partners they've brought to the table. To date, my administration has received more than $5 million in pro bono consulting support for key initiatives such as performance management and the desk audit. I'm grateful to all these pro bono partners for their good work. And it's in large part our commitment to performance management that in the worst of economic times, we've been able to decrease the sales tax. In my inaugural address, I pledged that the fiscal year 2011 budget would include a commitment to reduce the sales tax by 0.25% in 2012 and 0.25% in 2013. I made that pledge a cornerstone of my campaign and my budget because I know that the sales tax is a burden to working families and our business communities, particularly businesses on the periphery of the county who have to compete with businesses in Kane, Lake, Will, DuPage, or McHenry, counties that have a lower sales tax. I know that there are some who will say that this is not the time to reduce a possible source of revenue. But I want to make it clear, I'm fully committed to moving forward with the repeal of the sales tax. Already, our commitment to repeal has provided more than $250 million in savings to the taxpayers of Cook County. So I'm confident this is the right choice for Cook County, for our residents, for our families, for our businesses. We're also making structural changes in the collection of our revenue. Several weeks ago, I stood with Sheriff Tom Dart as we announced a joint task force to increase the enforcement and collection of cigarette tax revenue. In addition, this budget, by extending the Cook County cigarette tax to cover all tobacco products, not just pre-rolled cigarettes, will bring in an extra $12 million in additional revenues. In the case of the alcohol tax, the county has failed to update the rates for decades. As a result, Cook County lags behind the city of Chicago and many other municipalities in this source of revenue. This budget contains a modest increase in the county's rate. While still significantly under the city rate, this adjustment brings in an additional $10 million annually. While the use tax on title property such as cars or yachts hasn't changed since its enactment in 1995, the cost of maintaining our roads and highways has incredibly increased. Our suburban roads have been neglected for too long and have been maintained on a pay-as-you-go basis. For the first time ever, we will be using funds dedicated from the state's motor fuel tax to support a $100 million capital infrastructure plan to aid our county's aging suburban highways, roads, and bridges. We will be able to support this job-creating investment by adjusting our use tax, as I said above, which applies mainly to the purchase of vehicles that use our roads. This adjustment will generate jobs by improving the maintenance and safety of our road system. If Cook County is going to encourage economic development and create jobs, we have to look to the long term. Our plan invests in the county's infrastructure, allocating $400 million in funding over 3 years for regional job-creating capital projects, including the long overdue investments, as I said, in our county highways, roads, and bridges. We must also transform our workforce training system, however. Last week, I stood with Mayor Emanuel to announce our commitment to better serving our unemployed and underemployed. As a result of our city-county collaboration, we've already saved $8.4 million for county taxpayers, and we project these efforts will save between $66 and $140 million for the two governments in the next 2 to 4 years. We know that the only way to have real job security in the future is to have a good job with growing income. And in order to do that, you have to have real skills and the ability to learn new ones. Under the leadership of Cook County Works Director Karen Norrington Reeves, we will streamline today's patchwork of training programs between the city and the county and make them a source of new skills for our people who are unemployed or underemployed. This new approach to workforce development will allow companies to find and train employees to fit the jobs of the 21st century. Neither geographic boundaries nor systemic inefficiencies will be obstacles. When a new business moves into an area, they will need a workforce that is ready to meet their needs. But we also need to communicate to them that they can and should hire locally. 2/3 of our county budget is devoted to health care and criminal justice. And as we go into the next fiscal year, we will be seeing significant structural improvements within the arena of public safety. Detaining defendants in jail while they await trial is expensive to the county and is detrimental to our communities. The war on drugs has failed to eradicate drug use. Instead, it's resulted in the incarceration of millions throughout this nation. 100,000 annually here in Cook County alone, at a cost of $143 per day per inmate. At any given time, the Cook County Jail holds between 8,500 and about 9,000 inmates. Let me just say that Cook County isn't alone in this problem. We as a nation have 5% of the world's population, 5%, and 25% of the total population in prisons. Now, unless you believe that Americans are somehow more innately criminal than other people in the world, we've got a real problem in our criminal justice system, not just here locally, but nationally. The countywide performance management review sessions are coming together around strategies to reduce our jail population, including ways to increase the use of electronic monitoring and other alternatives to incarceration, such as I-bonds and community-based programs. And I want to thank in particular Sheriff Dart and the Chief Judge for their good work on electronic monitoring. We took a serious look at the profile of those we were detaining and projected that 1,000 detainees being held right now accused of nonviolent offenses would be eligible for electronic monitoring and other alternative programs. We've taken great strides to implement these kind of programs. In 2009, judges placed less than 100 people per day on electronic monitors as they awaited trial. Today, there are 865, not including those on house arrest, through alternate sentencing programs. We've also matched a grant to the Sheriff's Office of up to $1 million to provide additional services to those who are put on electronic monitoring within the Cook County criminal justice system. But our commitment to criminal justice reform and public safety reform cannot stop there. I want to talk a little bit about juveniles. A recent study showed that juvenile offenders received no marginal gain. I'll say it again, no marginal gain from being detained when compared to offenders under probation supervision. And for low and medium risk offenders, detention may even make recidivism more likely. A startling 43% of the young people in our juvenile temporary detention center stay for less than 7 days. And a significant portion stay for less than 24 hours. In Cook County, there are 35 kids locked up at the facility for every 100,000 juveniles in the county. But in Harris County, Texas, the third most populous county in the country, with Houston as its anchor, there are 19 kids locked up for every 100,000 juveniles. Again, there are not only tremendous social costs, but tremendous financial costs for dealing with young people through the Juvenile Temporary Detention Center. It costs $600 a day to detain a child. And I say child because, in fact, we're talking about children at the county's detention center. When you include the cost of food and shelter and security at the center, as well as the cost of the public school that's there, and their health care, it's about $224,000 a year. Again, more than $600 a day. Now, you can send a young person to Harvard for $52,000 a year, tuition, room, and board. So we're spending 4.5 times as much on kids in our juvenile temporary detention center as it costs to send a young person to Harvard. This just doesn't make sense. So this year we're investing in more alternate programs, including within juvenile probation, money to provide more opportunities, more support services, and less restrictive detention to the young people who come in contact with our criminal justice system. Along with reducing the number of youths who are detained, we're looking for alternatives to detention and will explore ways to build community capacity to provide such alternatives. Through these efforts, we're addressing the need for criminal justice reform and the need to make a greater investment in services to our youth rather than simply locking them up. Through this budget process, we also discovered a significant loophole in the county's provision of public safety, the provision of services to unincorporated Cook County. Roughly 2.1% of the county's 5.28 million population live in unincorporated Cook County. These areas, while scattered throughout Cook County, have a higher median income than the rest of the county. And yet, taxpayers of incorporated Cook County are fronting the costs of their law enforcement. So if you live in a city, whether it's Chicago or Oak Park or Schaumburg or Chicago Heights or any suburb, you currently pay taxes for 2 police forces. One is the municipal tax for the police force that serves you, but the other is the county tax for the sheriff's police that serves unincorporated Cook County residents. So unincorporated areas in Cook County have received a free ride on the backs of the rest of Cook County. We'll be ending that this year. By instituting special service areas in Cook County, we will be asking unincorporated areas to pay their fair share for their policing services. We believe this will amount to a roughly $5.5 million in revenue or savings for us for the first half of the year. To give you an idea of its impact, for those 100,000 residents, 100,000 only, who live in unincorporated Cook County, this is roughly equal to $50 per person or $150 per household. As we move forward over the next 6 months, in a partnership with the Civic Federation, we will be conducting a more detailed study of how to proceed. We're setting a framework for structural changes that will provide long-term financial and social benefits to our county, and this is just one example. As I said, we spend our money on public safety and on health care, and the health security of the uninsured and underinsured is one of the primary responsibilities of this government. I want to start by commending Dr. Raju. Dr. Raju has certainly had a baptism of fire. His first day on the job, October 3rd, was the beginning of the budget hearings for the healthcare system. He's been incredibly willing to work with us, I appreciate it, to try to ensure fiscal responsibility with fair and responsible healthcare provisions. Since the summer months, my office has worked with the healthcare system to chip away at the $121 million gap created by the initial health system request for funding. And today we've reached an agreement on the subsidy, $252 million, $24 million under last year's subsidy, and $117 million less than was originally proposed early this year. I've made a commitment to the taxpayers of Cook County to evaluate and streamline the costs of health care. But I also pledge to the staff in our healthcare system, and most importantly to the patients, to firmly protect the quality and sustainability of our healthcare services. We've seen what can happen when budget cuts are made with an axe and not a scalpel. We worked with the healthcare system to make strategic cuts that not only provided more efficiencies, but did not impact patient care. I'm proud that with Dr. Raju's leadership, we've been able to accomplish this. And it was accomplished by my staff and CCHHS, our healthcare system, working together to find ways to increase efficiencies and decrease costs without cutting services. Large budget savings were achieved through reducing supply chain, that is purchasing, and non-patient service expenditures, and eliminating unfilled and new vacant positions. The health and hospital system was able to lower its dependence on county funds without reducing patient services and while avoiding substantial layoffs. We know that we have to face hard truths and take bold steps if we're going to change the culture of Cook County. I believe that government at every level has the responsibility to provide good service and to do that as effectively and efficiently as possible. I knew that a hard job was ahead of me. I also knew that Cook County residents deserve someone who would work hard for them. Already we've made important headway in formalizing our budget process and professionalizing our operations. This budget reflects our tireless commitment to get Cook County's financial house in order. It builds on the framework for Cook County to provide better and more effective services to our residents. Our residents should be able to depend on a good public health care system and a criminal justice system that doesn't operate to the detriment of our communities or place an unnecessary burden on our taxpayers. But it isn't going to happen overnight. We have to continue to work together so that we can reshape county government and deliver on its commitment. We owe this to our voters, to our taxpayers, and to the residents of Cook County. Thank you very much.
Madam President.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam President. Pursuant to the statutes of the State of Illinois, Chapter 55, Article 6, I move that the 2012 executive budget for Cook County as submitted by the Office of the President be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Second.
It's been moved by Chairman Daley and seconded by Commissioner Sims. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
At this time, Madam President, I move to, prior to adjournment, I want to remind the members that we have a 10:45 Finance Committee. So I move the adjournment of this board meeting, move adjournment.
It's been moved by Chairman Daley and seconded by Commissioner Silvestri that the meeting be adjourned. All in favor signify by saying... All right, prior to adjournment, would the clerk please add Commissioner Steele to the roll?
It's 15 minutes, yeah.
Add Fritchie and Garcia.
Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Fritchie, and Commissioner Steele. Thank you very much. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Thank you. 10:45, Finance.